The story begins in a small town where two brothers, Ayan and Zaid, grew up in a house that was cracked with age but filled with love. Their father worked long nights as a security guard, and their mother stitched clothes from home. Life was never luxurious, but it was honest. And through every struggle, the brothers learned one thing early: you survive by standing together. Ayan, the elder brother, was the calm thinker, the kind of person who would observe a storm before stepping into it. Zaid was the opposite: passionate, quick to react, always ready to defend the people he loved. Their personalities clashed sometimes, but their hearts never did. They fought like brothers, laughed like brothers, and protected each other like warriors. One evening, when they were still teenagers, Ayan found Zaid sitting alone behind their house. His fists were bruised, his eyes red with anger. Ayan sat next to him silently, waiting. After a minute, Zaid whispered, "They made fun of your job, they called you weak." Ayan looked at him and simply said, "Why do you care what they say about me?" Zaid's voice cracked. "Because you're my brother. No one gets to disrespect you." Ayan didn't respond with lectures or anger. Instead, he placed his hand on Zaid's shoulder and said the words that stayed with them their whole lives. "Loyalty isn't what you do in front of people. It's what you do when no one is watching." That night, under a sky full of tired stars, their bond became unbreakable. They didn't know it then, but life would soon test that loyalty in ways they never imagined, pushing them to their limits, tearing them apart, and forcing them to choose between pride and brotherhood. Years passed, and the brothers grew into young men carrying the lessons of their childhood like armor. Ayan finished college and started working at a small electronics shop. Zaid, despite his fiery nature, had a talent for repairing anything with wires, fans, radios, phones. Together, they dreamed of opening their own repair center someday. But dreams have a way of being tested. One evening, Ayan came home late, his shirt soaked with sweat and dust. Zaid noticed the exhaustion on his brother's face. "Another rough day?" he asked. Ayan forced a smile. "Customers can be difficult. But it's fine." But Zaid sensed something deeper. After dinner, he went to the shop quietly to see what was happening. What he discovered made his blood boil. Ayan's employer not only shouted at him in front of customers, he also blamed Ayan for mistakes he didn't make. Ayan stood silently, taking the insults without reacting. Zaid clenched his fists. How could his brother tolerate this? He stormed in, ready to defend him, but Ayan grabbed his arm before he could speak. "Zaid, not here," Ayan whispered. They walked out together. Zaid's voice shook with anger. "Why didn't you say anything? Why do you let him disrespect you?" Ayan looked up at the night sky, the same sky under which they had once promised loyalty. "Because reacting in anger gives him power. I'm saving my energy for something bigger." Zaid didn't understand it then, but he trusted his brother blindly. That trust, pure, unquestioned, became the backbone of their bond. But life was preparing to challenge that trust. A storm was coming, one that would shake their loyalty to its core. A storm that would force Zaid to choose, protect his brother, or lose him forever. The storm arrived on a night when no one expected it. Ayan was working late at the shop, and Zaid was on his way to bring him dinner. The streets were quiet, the air heavy, and the only sound was the hum of motorcycles in the distance. As Zaid approached the shop, he saw something that froze him mid-step. 3 men stood around Ayan, loud, aggressive, and clearly looking for trouble. They accused him of damaging their phone during repair, demanding money, threatening to ruin the entire shop. Ayan kept explaining calmly, but they weren't there for explanation. They wanted someone to break, and Ayan was the easiest target. Zaid felt his heartbeat slam against his chest. He wanted to rush forward, but he remembered every lesson Ayan had ever taught him: think before you react. But seeing Ayan pushed, seeing his collar grabbed, it broke something inside him. Before he could stop himself, Zaid stepped in. "Let him go," he said, his voice low but sharp. The men turned, amused. "And who are you supposed to be?" Zaid didn't answer. He simply walked to Ayan's side and stood there, shoulder to shoulder. His presence alone shifted the atmosphere. Ayan whispered urgently, "Zaid, don't do anything stupid." But it was too late. One of the men shoved Zaid lightly, testing him. Zaid didn't move. He didn't flinch. He only said one sentence. "If you touch my brother again, you'll regret it." Ayan knew Zaid wasn't bluffing. He grabbed his arm and pulled him away. "Let's go," Ayan insisted. "They're not worth it." The brothers left the shop quietly, but the men didn't forget the humiliation of being challenged. And the next day, they came back, this time not for an argument, but for revenge. The next afternoon, trouble returned with purpose. Ayan had taken the day off, but the shop owner called him urgently. "Those men came again," he said, voice trembling. "They're accusing you of stealing parts. They're threatening to shut my business down." Ayan felt his stomach tighten. He knew this wasn't about parts, this was about the confrontation the previous night. He left home immediately, hoping to end things peacefully. But Zaid sensed something was wrong. He followed at a distance, watching, waiting. When Ayan reached the shop, the same three men stood outside, louder and angrier than before. People gathered, whispering. The leader stepped forward and jabbed a finger into Ayan's chest. "You think you're smart, huh? Bringing your little brother yesterday? Let's see who helps you today." Ayan remained calm, even respectful. "I didn't steal anything," he replied. "Let's talk properly." But they didn't want to talk. One of them shoved Ayan hard enough that he stumbled. The crowd watched but no one stepped in. Fear has a way of paralyzing people. And then, from behind the crowd, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Touch him again." It was Zaid. He walked forward slowly, each step filled with controlled rage. His eyes were focused only on his brother. Ayan shook his head desperately. "Zaid, don't. Please." But Zaid had already seen more than enough. "I warned you yesterday," he said to the men. "I don't like repeating myself." The leader smirked. "What will you do alone?" Zaid didn't answer. Instead, he stepped right in front of Ayan, shielding him with his body. The message was clear: if you want him, you go through me. And in that moment, loyalty became more than a bond. It became a battle line. The fight didn't last long, but its consequences did. A shopkeeper called the police, and before anyone could explain, Ayan and Zaid were taken to the station along with the three men. Sitting in that cold room, Ayan felt his heart break, not because of the fight, but because Zaid was dragged into trouble because of him. When the officer asked what happened, the men twisted the story, claiming Ayan had damaged their phone and Zaid had attacked them without reason. It was 3 voices against 2. The brothers remained silent. Not because they were guilty, but because arguing would only make things worse. After hours of questioning, the officer sighed. "You boys seem decent. Go home. And don't return here again." Outside the station, the night was cold. Zaid rubbed his bruised knuckles. Ayan looked at him with pain in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come," Ayan whispered. Zaid smiled weakly. "And leave you alone? Never." Ayan shook his head. "You got hurt because of me." Zaid placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, the same gesture Ayan had made years ago behind their old house. "Hurt? Brother, loyalty hurts sometimes. But losing you would hurt 1,000 times more." Ayan's eyes softened. For the first time in days, he exhaled fully. "What do we do now?" Zaid looked forward. "We do what we've always done. Stand together." The next morning, Ayan quit the shop. He and Zaid pooled their savings, borrowed a small loan, and opened the repair center they had dreamed about since childhood. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't big. But it was theirs. People who once ignored them now admired their resilience. The brothers didn't rise because life was easy, they rose because their loyalty never broke. And that became their legacy.